Hi, this is Dana, and in this video, I will come back to a previous topic um, to add different details. And namely, I'm going back to the topic related to doing bondage breaking by animals. Um, and I do so because in that video, I couldn't say everything that I felt it's important. And I just want to add details so everybody will understand how this works. Also, to make sure that whoever decides to do bondage breaking by animals will understand the exact complexity of such a spiritual work, and assume full responsibility if they decide to do it, and only under the proper circumstances, because it involves many souls, and souls which depend on you. So one thing which I want to say from the beginning is that you cannot ever do bondage breaking by animal unless you have certain circumstances. One is direct communication with God. This is extremely important because you have to understand that dog or animal, whatever animal you choose, um, has a soul and has a bondage or more bondages, many bondages, which you do not know of. Okay, you don't know what kind of bondage that soul has. So in order to fight that bondage and to keep that animal alive, and help him on soul level to break the bondage, and so to evolve and be able to then do either embodiment or even incarnation further in human body, you definitely need a divine guidance. It's impossible to do it without divine guidance because you don't know what bondage they have. Okay, so and I will give a few examples in which I will explain that our normal instincts um, don't help sometimes, don't help those animals to break their bondages. Okay, I'll give you one example. As I said in the previous video, um, of course, I adopted some dogs. Some actually, I adopted a female dog, a stray dog, and then she gave birth to puppies in my courtyard. So I adopted her basically one day before my neighbors called this specialized teams which come to pick up dogs, stray dogs, and kill them. Okay, so I took her in my courtyard to save her, and I didn't know she is carrying puppies. She gave birth a month later in my courtyard. I didn't know initially what to do, but God told me to keep the dogs because this is going to be a different type of bondage breaking that we will do together through those dogs, those puppies. Okay, so I raised the puppies in my courtyard, but then God slowly revealed to me different type of bondages. For example, for the mother, for the female dog which gave birth, essentially God showed me she had the bondage of having no family, no house, no children, puppies, meaning on soul level for humans, that meant also children, no name. So she would be always a stray, um, abandoned, homeless soul, no documents, and will end up dying without a name. This was a generational curse on her, on this soul, to die without having a name, without having a family, without having a house, without, and to have this torturous life as a stray, abandoned, homeless individual, and later on dog. So she essentially, by taking her in, God showed me you must give her a name, you must make documents for her because it's part of her bondage, not to be claimed by anyone, not to have documents, not to be abandoned always. She as a human was part of human trafficking networks. God showed me, and the curse was to never have a family of her own, a name, and to die without a name, without anybody taking care of her. And she was almost gonna die like that when I adopted her. As I said, I adopted her one day before this ecarissage thing, these guys who come pick up stray animals and kill them. I took her in my courtyard one day before. Um, and essentially, then I broke all these bondages for her. I raised her puppies. So everyone now, as we speak, are alive and fine in my courtyard still. 1 year and a half later. So I broke this bondage, but I couldn't have known all of this. I mean, your my instinct told me to take her in my courtyard, right? Okay, that you can do without divine guidance if you listen to your instinct. But then you don't know, because as she gave birth to 6 puppies, my first instinct was, I cannot keep this many puppies, which they then become dogs later on. It's too much for me. I have my own dog, Lucky, and then my courtyard is not that big. But then God explained to me this is part of her bondage. That her children would be killed if she gets, because she was trafficked as a human being. If she gets pregnant, for her children to die, um, uh, and so on. So basically, I couldn't have known to do all of this, and my human instinct wouldn't have helped me to understand these kind of things, which I had to do for helping her breaking the bondage. And as you break the bondage, of course, that soul, God can take that soul and can help that soul then, once this bondage is broken, to embody in a human, or later on even incarnate through birth, you know. But unless you have divine guidance, you do not know to do all of that. I will give you one more example. There I'll give you 2 more examples, actually. One is that some of the puppies, of course, were more I don't know how to say, more had more of a personality. Others didn't, and there are at least one of them, who constantly couldn't eat, because the other ones were beating him up, essentially. They were just ganging up and beating him up and wouldn't allow him to eat. So my normal instinct as a human was like, to take him aside separately and make sure that he gets food separately so he can eat properly, right? And God told me at some point, this is not what we're doing here. You must break bondage for this puppy. And that bondage is, he needs to learn to fight for himself, because this is how he got into animal embodiment, simply because as a human he didn't know to fight for himself, and everyone ganged up against him and they just killed him. So you need to let him learn to fight. This was very difficult for me, I must say, because your normal instinct when you see the other one beating him, of course, is to go and defend him, because it's not normal to let them beat him. But then, of course, I followed God's guidance. I somehow compromised between God's guidance and my instinct. When I would sit at the window all day and watch what's happening. If they beat him too much, I would intervene. And sometimes I would say to God, I said, fine, bondage breaking, but they're gonna kill him. I need to stop them. I need to feed him. He's now too thin. I need to make sure that he also eats. And then sometimes, if they, I would just listen to God and not intervene and let him fight with them, because God showed me, this is why I asked you to keep them, so you can help them overcome the bondages. And for this particular puppy, he needs to learn to stand up. He needs to know that the food that he is served, he has to fight for that food. That is one of his rights. He needs to learn on soul level to stand up for himself and to confront others, and to fight for his rights. And this is why I asked you to keep them, so you can help them overcome these bondages. Yeah, I don't need you to pamper him. I need you to let him learn to fight, you know. So yeah, this actually happened with a few of them, not just one. Each of them has particularities and different personality and different situation, but I'm just giving you examples so you'll understand that our instincts don't help us in breaking bondage through animal on soul level. You need divine guidance. You cannot do this on your own. And I'll give you one more example now. Mm, this past summer in 2021, um, I had in my courtyard, as I said before, the puppies and the female dog. And as I was in my home, in my house, right, and they were in my courtyard, yeah, uh, um, some neighbors poisoned two puppies from the streets, two stray puppies. They poisoned them and they threw them in my courtyard, okay, to die in my courtyard. um, I I was in the house. I didn't leave the house. I actually was painting my house at the time. So I fed my dogs at 9 p.m. I entered in my house. I painted all night long. God told me specifically to paint the house that night. And in the morning, said to me, "Now you can go out." I went out, and I found two dead bodies, two dead puppies in my courtyard. So initially I thought they're mine, my puppies, because my puppies were poisoned in my courtyard, so I had to save them. I said that in the previous video. Were poisoned by neighbors, by the same neighbors. But I saw my puppies were okay, and so I figured, okay, these are not mine. I didn't know what happened. So as I went outside to pick up the bodies, because I was afraid that my dogs will get close to them, you know and I was trying to figure out how to pick them up, how to take them, where to put them, so my dogs won't get close to them. One of my neighbors came out and started yelling like crazy, hysterical at me, making accusations at my puppies and at myself, that I killed those two stray puppies and my dogs killed them. And it was bloody. There was no blood and there was no wound on those two puppies, I must say to you. This man was yelling at me, saying that my puppies killed those two stray dogs in my courtyard, and that it was a monstrous fight, and it was all my fault because I didn't care to come out of the house to save those puppies. And to In any case, this individual has been harassing and torturing my dogs, including using psychotronic um, um, uh, technology pointed at my dogs by him in my courtyard next to my fence. I cannot explain to you what I've been through. But anyhow, so this is what I faced. It was clear to me, first of all, it was early in the morning, and he claimed that this situation happened 12 hours before. So it happened in the evening. It seemed after I fed my dogs, after 9 p.m. But I was in the house. First of all, I actually said to him, how did these two stray dogs get into my courtyard? My fence has no hole. These dogs cannot come into my courtyard. Somebody threw them here, first of all. Second of all, there is no blood, there is no wound on them. And my dogs are just patiently, there was no anyone that raised a dog ever knows that if another dog or a human comes to aggress a puppy or a dog, he starts crying, he starts fighting, he starts crying. It's noise. I mean, every time when my puppies fight among themselves, it's noise, and I go out to see what's going on. But there was no noise and no crying all evening and all night long. I was awoke. I was not asleep. I could have heard if something was happening. So that was clear to me that he was involved in this setup. And I actually said this to him. These two puppies were thrown by neighbors like you, who are doing harm to me for years already now. They couldn't get into my courtyard, and my dogs didn't kill them, first of all. Not to mention, that even if that would have been the case, if I would have had big dogs to kill them, that was my courtyard. So the dogs would have defended the courtyard. It was just something absolutely legal to do, normal to do. But this was not the case because the my dogs were puppies just exactly the same size as the puppies that were killed. It's not like we're like big dogs. And in the back of the courtyard where this happened were only the puppies, the four puppies, boys that I had. The female dog was in front of the house, so she was not around there. Anyhow, um, this happened, right? So as this happened, I took the bodies, I put them separately so the dogs don't get to them, and I called the police, right? I called the police. I called 911. A policeman came. The policeman, actually, when he came, he went and spoke to this individual who was yelling at me that my dogs are criminal and I am criminal, and that my dogs should be taken away because they're criminal. You imagine, these puppies had each of them 2 kilos, and he called them criminals killing another other dogs. First of all, those dogs were not supposed to be in my courtyard. It seemed such a madness. And to me it was like nothing makes sense. From everything he says, nothing makes sense. Anyhow, the policeman went to him. As he arrived, he didn't come to me. I called 911. He didn't come to me. He went to this next door neighbor. He went to him. He discussed with him what to say, you know. And I had to wait him outside of my courtyard in the street for like 20 minutes for him to finish talking with the neighbor. And then he came out. Although I emphasize I was the one to call 911. Regardless, he didn't come to me. He went to him to get instructions what to do. And when as he came out, I said, I called you, and I am the one who has the problem, you know. And he says to me, I don't need to talk to you. I spoke to your neighbor. I know exactly what happened. What do you mean? I called you. I called 911. I called for help. You need to at least listen to me if you don't care to actually take in consideration. But you have the obligation of listening to me and making a report and coming to see the scene where this happened. Now, he refused to enter my courtyard. He refused to see the bodies of the two puppies. He refused to do anything. He refused to listen to me. Simply like that. He said, I spoke to your neighbor. Your neighbor says your dogs killed the other dogs, and therefore we must take your dogs. I said, no, you're not taking my dogs, first of all. Second of all, you should come and see my fence, see the place where they died, and see the bodies. You have to take the two bodies, to do necropsy on them. He refused. He simply refused to even look at the bodies, if you can imagine. So then I got mad. I said, excuse me, I need your badge number, your name, exactly where you come from. Are you going to make a report? Because I would like to tell you something. These two puppies were poisoned, were not killed by my dogs. And second, I will make a necropsy if you refuse to do it. I will take the bodies to the necropsy and I will prove to you that I am right. And this bastard of neighbor, he is involved in this, and this is why he's saying all these lies about my dogs and so on. And I will make declaration. So I will come to the police and I will make a complaint. Complaint, yes. I couldn't find the word in English. I will make a complaint on this. So are you going to make a report on this situation? Since you refuse to see the dogs, you refuse to come into the courtyard, you refuse to come to see the fence and the courtyard where it's happened. What you going to write in the report then? The law says that he has to take the bodies. He has to call for forensics to come to take pictures, to come to take the bodies, to come. He's required by law to do all this. He refused. He simply refused. I got angry, so I said, give me your name, please. I want to know your name. Exactly. And I promise you, Monday morning, I will be at your police station and I will make a complaint about this. Okay? So he went to next door to my neighbor and he warned them in front of me. I was on the street, so I could see them talking. I could hear them talking. So he says to them, watch out, because she plans to do a necropsy and to make a complaint, a formal complaint about this. So I advise you to make a complaint against her before she gets to make a complaint on you. If you can imagine, this was a policeman. Yeah. Anyhow, I was so angry. I took the bodies. I took a taxi and I went to a specialized institute to do in necropsy, you know. And I because it was summer, so it was very hot outside. You know, I couldn't let the bodies stay in my courtyard. And I asked for necropsy on them to check for poisoning and so. And basically after that there was much more complicated. The point is I had a lot of harassment about this because I insisted on making a complaint. That individual, the policeman, refused. He actually told me, it's forbidden for you to come at my police station. I said, what the hell kind of police station is this that you forbid people to come make complaints about murders happening in their courtyard, you know? So he said, no, 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 you're not allowed to come to my police station. You should go to here to the local station where they had more control, you know, being at a local level. And as I went to get the necropsy on Monday morning, essentially, you cannot imagine. I got the phone call from the local police, and they said, you cannot go to the police station where that policeman came from. You should come to talk to us here on local level. Uh, Anyhow, I pursued this. There was a lot of efforts to cover up the entire story and the entire situation. I, with my own money, I paid for the necropsy for the two bodies. Okay, I went to the local police, and then I went at a higher level, at the regional level, and I made complaint there as well. Essentially, there was a lot of effort for me, and God showed me, you know, after I've done the necropsy, before I went to the police station, God has shown me the following, so you will understand how complicated this bondage breaking by animal is. He showed me the two souls of the two stray dogs, the two puppies, which were thrown into my courtyard. So these were puppies which I never seen in my life. Okay, basically were souls from which previously were incarnated as humans. In their human incarnation, because they were soul from God's lineage, yeah, they were murdered by poisoning. But what happened was that they were poisoned. Then they were taken to a pub, and everybody around was told that they were intoxicated with alcohol, that they're drunk, you know. Um, then these individuals who killed them, then they basically pushed these two souls, these two individuals, against a group which was in the pub at the time consuming alcohol. They created an altercation, a conflict between them. Okay, and uh, the ones in the pub were accused of murder, so they were all locked up for life. Okay, in the conflict, the two individuals which were poisoned died, but they didn't die because these ones killed them. These ones essentially got into a fight with them over something which somebody said, you know, they said this about you, now you should go hit them or something like this, you know. So there was something orchestrated, something a setup, right? So those other individuals were locked up for life for a murder which they didn't commit, because these two actually died because of poisoning, not because of their beating them up. Do you understand? That was a setup. And God showed me this was a bondage created on both sides, on the two individuals, two souls, that they die of poisoning, and that is being presented as a murder, that they were some drunk asses, you know, no good individuals that just got into a fight into a pub and they got killed, you know. And the other ones, also had the bondage of going to prison for no reason, because they, first of all, they were provoked to get into a fight with them, by lies said by others which were setting them up, and they were accused of killing them, although they didn't kill them because those were poisoned. They died of poison, right? And God showed me that because I fought so much, and because I did the necropsy, this is why the police refused to take the bodies and to make the necropsy, because God showed me in their human embodiment, the police set them up. The police was hand in hand with those who set them up. So this is why God explained to me, because I was bewildered. I was like, this is not possible. I called the police and they refused to take the bodies. More than that, they actually say my dogs are guilty of defending my own courtyard, which is not normal anywhere. But that is not even true. My dogs did not kill those dogs, because I know them. They will get into fights, but any other dog will defend himself or cry at least. It's not like they are not monsters. Again, each of them had 2 kilos at the time. They're puppies themselves. They're small. And God showed me, because I fought so much, I broke that bondage of being poisoned, but then presented as a bump, no good individual who's drunk all the time, homeless individual who's been killed. So I broke that bondage, and because also I insisted on making official report, because what they were trying to convince me was like, these are just stray dogs. It's not necessary to do necropsy. It's not necessary to do formal complaint. It's not necessary to do anything. They said, no, 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 no. I want to do this, because I don't understand how is it normal that I find 2 dead bodies in my courtyard, and these are 2 souls which died in my courtyard. How is that possible? This is my private courtyard. No, nobody should enter my courtyard. And first of all, there is no hole. Who put them in my courtyard? Who put them in my courtyard? So I want investigation. And this bastard of neighbor of mine, who came out yelling like crazy, he coordinated the whole setup, working with other neighbors here in the area, to throw those puppies in my courtyard. So what I want to say is that behind all of this madness, which really didn't make much sense in the beginning, there is a lot of bondage behind it. So basically, I broke bondage for both the 2 puppies, which in human form had the bondage on of poisoning and being killed, and so on, and also on the other ones who spend their lives in prison under a false accusation of murder, which they didn't kill, which is the case of my puppies. And God showed me this is why they came as dogs, incarnated as dogs this time around, because it was impossible for them to be incarnated as human because of this. So all of this you don't really know. You in order to break the bondage for them, you can be confronted with very complicated situations, and you don't understand exactly what to say, and there was much more complicated. There's much more involved that I had to do, including with the police, because the police refused to actually take this seriously. So there was much more that I had to do. I actually made, I think, around like 10 complaints in total, and I had to go up to the next level every time, because even as I went to the regional level to make a complaint, the policeman I encountered there, he refused to let me write my declaration. He said, "You'll write what I tell you." If you can imagine this. And they said, "You haven't been there. How can you tell me what to write? What happened?" No, 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 but I know what must be in our documents. I said, "No, excuse me, I'm not, I will write my own declaration. I have my own things to say, which I want to be here in written, and be in this file and in this complaint." So it was much more complicated. Then I had to report on him as well, and I did so. I reported him as well at a higher level. I made a complaint about him as well, because you're not allowed to interfere with my declaration. It's my declaration. You don't dictate to me my declaration. And if he's like, I don't have time to wait for you to make your declaration, that's not my problem. I came here with appointment, and I told you from the beginning I have many things to write. You should have made time. It's not my problem. Anyhow, it was much more complicated than that. So I had to do much more. There's not enough time to explain here everything. I did write on my Facebook page some prophetic writing that I explained there, how this situation, this case, I explained as much as I could, and in order to give examples of how bondage breaking works. But this is what I mean, that bondage breaking by animal is not simple. They come with very serious bondages. There are very serious bondages which preclude them to incarnate as humans. And this is why they come in animal form. Now you have to have direct communication with God to help you break that bondage. Otherwise, you're just gonna raise a pet um, to the best of your abilities. He's gonna give you much love, I'm sure, but you're not gonna succeed in bondage breaking. That's a fact, and unfortunately, this is the purpose of bondage breaking by animal. There's been many more situations in which divine guidance showed me to go in totally different way about my dogs than I would have done it instinctively. Okay, so I had to learn a lot, and I had to restrain myself a lot. Like, for example, one of the dogs, I used to carry him in my arms. So God said, you're not supposed to do this, because in his previous lifetime he never grew up because of very close connection to his mother. So you need to just keep him at a distance, so he will man up, so he will he's actually, God said this one is supposed to be the leader of the entire group. So you need to keep him at a distance, so he will be perceived by others not as the spoiled one, because the other ones will be envying him. Very complicated situations, I tell you. And these were all bondages from their human embodiment, human incarnations. Okay, so God showed me specifically that that one was the leader, and because he was always pampered by his mother, he never succeeded to gain the trust of the other men in the group, and most of them were envious because they were together, and they also wanted to be spoiled, and so